Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC Fight Night Dern versus Hill. Um, Going into this, I'm doing this very late at night, full of energy. Going into this, I thought this card was going to be a dud, and while it felt as though in certain pockets it ended on at a really, really nice high point, and I'll explain at the end. Um, there are no robberies on the card. 0 robberies. No one got robbed. But we're here to discuss the scorecards, and we'll start off with the first one. We'll start off with the first honorable mention, which is Hooper versus Fiore. I think it's Fury, but it looks like it's pronounced Fiore. I'm gonna say Fury, just for shorthand. An amazing fight. I'll talk about my opinions on the fight, but first, Hooper versus Fury. I had this 30-27, all 3 rounds for Hooper. In that first round, Fury had multiple takedowns, but essentially he was outstruck everywhere he went. He was surprisingly outstruck on the feet by Hooper. He was outstruck on the ground where Hooper was on his back a lot of the times, and he was outstruck from there. And the occasional times that Hooper did get on top of him, he also outstruck him there as well. In the second round, Fury had a takedown, but again, he was outstruck a lot. I mean, he was outstruck to the point where he was putting his hands up just blocking, and he just wouldn't throw anything back. He was outstruck so badly, you could argue a possible 10-8 for that round. You go to the third round, both had a takedown. But Hooper again outstruck Fury on the feet, and he had a lot of ground and pound as well. That's where you get the 30-27. You go to the judges' scorecards. Mike Bell, his scorecard reflects mine. Tony Weeks, his scorecard reflects mine. And then Junichiro Kamijo wanted to be cute and have it 30-26. He gave it 10-8 in the first round. I'm going to say an honorable mention. I usually don't give honorable mentions for 10-8s because today was the 10-8 show. I mean, if you look at the scorecards across the fight card, across the program, it's 10-8s everywhere. The judges were just like, fuck it, we're giving 10-8s everywhere. And there's some spots where you can give a 10-8, and there's some spots where a 10-8 shouldn't touch it. And I think this first round shouldn't touch it. There are some, yes, Hooper outstruck him everywhere he went, but at the same time, Fury did get the takedowns. It's not as though he just stumbled onto the ground or these were Hooper's takedowns. If these were Hooper's takedowns, I'd be like, okay, 10-8. But they weren't. Fury got him down to the ground. This shouldn't be a 10-8 in any. This first round should not be a 10-8 in any capacity. So honorable mention there, Junichiro Kamijo. We go to the next. Before I even dip onto that, in this fight, they walk up, Hooper and Fury. Hooper is getting ready to get inside the octagon, and I was just, in conjunction with listening to the commentary, they were like, this is his first fight at lightweight. He looks big. He looks a lot bigger. At featherweight, he looks almost frail. Very, very frail. At this weight, he looks full. He looks absolutely full. And in my head, watching Fury in his last fight, I thought he did pretty decent. Now, he lost that fight, but I thought he did decent enough. He showed some qualities of like, okay, he has a chin, and he actually kind of can strike, and on the ground he's really decent. I thought he was going to walk all over Hooper. I was so surprised when Hooper came in and was just... I was thinking this to myself, his style, Hooper's style, and it just dawned on me now because he fought so well. He fought so well, and the punches he threw didn't look bad. The punches he threw at lightweight and the punches he threw at featherweight are the same exact punches. The only difference is these ones felt as though they had sting, and so the reason that this spawned in my head is he fights kind of like the way he strikes. It reminds me, I don't know if this is accurate, but it reminds me of Nico Price. It's like a carbon copy of Nico Price, except with a little. He's a lot more fluid on his feet. He just looked like an entirely different fighter. It made zero sense in my head. I swear, it made no sense at all. He was fluid on his feet. On the ground, obviously, he was amazing. Something that I had never seen before. I think maybe there was a fight where he did this, but once he got on the ground, once he was on his back, the ways for him to get out were just insane. I'm surprised people don't do this. Maybe it's because their legs aren't as long or they're not as flexible, whatever. Just the way he was getting out, which was just, oh, I'm just going to go under your butt. Oh, I'm just going to put my legs over under your head and then just spin out. I'm going to use submissions to peel out. I remember when people were doing that maybe a year ago, a lot of months ago, and I thought it was going to be a thing. Nope, there's just things. It's just every day this surprises me. I was so surprised that Hooper was in my head. I thought he was about to get milked, and he comes out and beats Fury. It's insane. Next honorable mention: Latifi versus Nacimento. This might be the first split decision that makes so much sense. And what I mean by that is I fully agree with the split decision. If I read these scorecards correctly, they're insane. They're absolutely, this split decision. How do I say that? I'm trying to say this not in a stupid way. I'm sorry. It's like 3 a.m. When the split decision was read, I agreed with it completely. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. So I had this 29-28 Nacimento. So this fight ended in a split decision. I gave the first round to Nacimento, the last round to Nacimento, obviously. First round, I put a close marker on it. You can actually argue this fight for Latifi. You can argue the first round for Latifi, first round for Nacimento. Second round, I gave to Latifi as well. In that first round, which is why it's close, Nacimento barely outstruck Latifi. A lot of missed shots by Nacimento, and the shots by Latifi were mostly just leg kicks, if not all leg kicks, really. But Nacimento still outstruck him, but it was maybe by 1 to 2 strikes. It was close. It was very close. You could really argue that. You can argue that either way. Second round, it's close on the feet. They're both kind of even on the feet. Both had to take. Close on the feet. Pretty even on the feet. Latifi gets a takedown, and with some ground and pound to pretty much close out the round. It's his round. Third round, Latifi gets a takedown, but Nacimento gets up pretty quickly. And before even that takedown, he's getting outstruck on the feet. After the takedown, Latifi's getting outstruck on the feet. That round pretty much goes to Nacimento. You read the judges' scorecards. Derek Cleary, his scorecard reflects mine. Saul Diamata, his scorecard reflects mine. And Jacob Montalvo. I was assuming he was going to give the first round to Latifi. It wasn't. He gives the first round to Nacimento, second round to Latifi. He gives the last round to Latifi. That is a bad scorecard. That is a shit scorecard. It's a very bad scorecard. So honorable mention to Jacob Montalvo. I just read it. The third round is Nacimento outstrikes Latifi. He outstrikes Latifi. The only thing Latifi does is get a takedown, and then immediately Nacimento pops back up and continues to get outstruck. It's a bad scorecard. Honorable mention to make Jacob Montalvo. When I heard it, I was assuming Montalvo was going to give the first to Latifi. No, he just fucks up the scorecard. Next honorable mention is I don't know how to pronounce this name. I thought I would. Is Urbina versus Cosce. I think it's Cosce. Yeah, Cosce. This fight ended in a TKO for Urbina in the second round. I gave Urbina the first round 10-9. Obviously, it's pretty simple. Urbina had 2 takedowns with a lot of ground and pound for about 2 minutes. Okay. That's pretty much what happened in the first round. Ron McCarthy and Junichiro Kamijo gave a 10-8 to Urbina. And then Jerem Villalba gave a 10-9. I don't know. It's just the 10-8 show. I mean, it wasn't enough. I felt as though it wasn't enough to give a 10-8, but I guess they gave it a 10-8. There's nothing here to really argue. It's a 10-8, not a 10-8, whatever. Next honorable mention. Okay, Fialho versus Johnson. Crazy. Before I even get to the knockout, this fight ended in a knockout in the second round by Fialho. First round, I gave Johnson a 10-9. I gave him a 10-9 in the first round. He outstruck Fialho in that first round, obviously. Mike Bell, his scorecard reflects that. Adelaide Bird, his scorecard reflects that. And then Saul D'Amato wanted to be cute and then give the first round to Fialho. That doesn't even make sense. He was outstruck in the first round pretty clearly. Honorable mention of Saul D'Amato. Now to the knockout. The way Michael Johnson got knocked out and just fell down reminded me of Cool Hand Luke. Where Cool Hand Luke's on the table and he's like, does a little Jesus pose. Except, it was, I didn't know whether to feel sad or it just felt insane. I was just agape. It was crazy. I think the even crazier part is I watched through ESPN Plus, so I'm unable to see the backstage stuff that apparently, when I was online skimming, apparently, excuse me, apparently UFC Fight Pass allows, like, once Brendan Fitzgerald goes, and we'll be right back, they just stay there on Fight Pass. They just stay there, so you're just watching everything that's going on. That's fucking cool. I wish we had that feature on ESPN Plus instead of the shitty commercials. But beyond that point, and I think they do that too for pay-per-views as well, except for they do that for pay-per-view prelims and early prelims, but not for the actual pay-per-view, obviously. No, for the pay-per-view they do stay there, but you get what I'm saying. When they come back from commercial on my ESPN Plus, Johnson's like, what the fuck happened? And I couldn't read what his coach said, but he was just like, what the fuck? And it was the way he mouthed it was the funniest thing ever. But, yeah. Yeah, there's that. Next honorable mention is Fialho versus Buckley. Incredible knockout by Buckley in the second round. KO in the second round with a leg kick. First round I gave to Fialho. It's a close. I think you can kind of argue it either way. It's very, very close. Very close. 10-9 for Fialho in the first round. In that first round, Fialho barely outstrikes Buckley. Barely. And then Buckley gets a takedown. So you're kind of just stuck with the who am I leaning towards? It's an interpretation issue. And pick one. Pick one, basically. Judges' scorecards, Derek Cleary, 10-9 for Fialho, same for Montalvo, Jacob Montalvo, and then for Tony Weeks, he gives a 10-9 to Buckley. So, yeah. I mean, it's a pick one, really. You go to the next fight. I had Ducote versus Godinez. I had this 30-27 Godinez. Pretty simple. First round, Godinez outstruck Ducote. Second round, Godinez outstruck Ducote again. Except in the second half, she was Godinez was outstriking Ducote, and then the second half, all of a sudden, Godinez decided, let me stop punching her, and essentially, Ducote kind of caught up on strikes, but she still didn't outstrike her. So it's kind of close on strikes, but Godinez still outstruck her. Then in the third round, Godinez outstruck Ducote on the feet, and Godinez had a takedown. Again, her round. Boom. 30-27. You go to the judges' scorecards. Mike Bell, his scorecard reflects mine. And then Junichiro Kamijo and Ron McCarthy both have a 29-28. Honorable mention to them. The closest round here, if we're going to be real about it, the closest round here is the second round. I'm very surprised that they gave the third round to Ducote, given that even if they felt as though she slightly outstruck her or was close on strikes with her, the takedown kind of emphasizes it. So honorable mention there to Junichiro Kamijo and Ron McCarthy. I don't like those scorecards. Then next on the list, we have Shabazyan versus Hernandez. Shabazyan versus Hernandez. This sucks because I thought Shabazyan was going to win. He didn't. He obviously didn't. I gave the first round to Shabazyan. I put a close marker on it. I think you can actually argue. You can argue for Hernandez, but I'm not feeling it. You can argue for Hernandez. I'll explain in a second. Second round obviously goes to Hernandez, and then a TKO win for Hernandez in the third round. In that first round, Shabazyan outstruck Hernandez on the feet. But then later in the round, Hernandez gets 2 takedowns. He's kind of just riding him. He's really just riding him. Nothing. He lands a couple of ground and pound shots, but not enough to really steal it. Not enough to really, in my view, take the round. But I think if he landed heavier ground and pound and just kept going instead of what I thought was a lot of riding and maybe looking for submissions, then maybe he wins the round. But he doesn't. Just some shots, 2 takedowns. It's a close round. You can argue it for Hernandez. I gave it to Shabazyan 10-9. In that second round, Hernandez had multiple takedowns, multiple sub attempts, with a lot of ground and pound. Same here. He was just kind of riding him. Had some ground and pound, had a lot of ground and pound, and some submission attempts. You go to the judges' scorecards. All 3 judges, they gave the first, Derek Cleary, Saul D'Amato, and Junichiro Kamijo, gave the first round a 10-9 to Shabazyan. So they all kind of saw what I saw, which was dude was getting ridden at the end, but he outstruck Hernandez well enough to win that round. And then the second round, they all gave a 10-8 to Hernandez. Now, here's my problem with that. If a lot of the ground and pound that he's giving in that second round isn't enough. Now, there's just a lot of dead space, a lot of dead air, a lot of just riding. To me, that's not enough for a 10-8, but I can't argue. All 3 gave him a 10-8. It is what it is. It's the 10-8 show. As you can see at the end, boom, whatever. All right. You go to the last one, Dern versus Hill, the fight of the night. I'll get to that in a second on just the ethos of what a fight of the night is now. But anyways, Dern versus Hill, I had this 49-44. That is, listen, there's a lot of 10-8 talk. That is the only acceptable scorecard. Let's stop playing for a second. That is the only, it's wild. That is the only acceptable scorecard. I'll explain in a second. First round, give to Dern, and then third, fourth, fifth, you give to Dern as well. But in the third and the fifth, is a 10-8 for me. And that's where you get and then the second round, I gave a 10-9 to Hill. That's where you get the 49-44. We'll start from the top. In the first round, Dern dropped and outstruck Hill. I didn't think I would ever hear that. Going into this fight, I really thought that Hill was going to do the Marina Rodriguez Xiaonan proven test, which is, granted, Hill fought a little differently than she did in those fights, but still, the test of, okay, stay the fuck away from Dern, and just point fight. I thought that's what we've learned. But essentially, Dern decided, okay, there's two ways I can fight you. There's two ways I can fight these people. And that is learn how to strike recklessly, because listen, I'm tired of the propaganda. I'm tired of the coding of what actually is. Okay? It's not her striking improved. That's fucking, that's like putting a fruit, that's like putting a strawberry on a cake. One strawberry on a cake and calling it fruit cake. What the fuck? No, that's not how that works. Her striking didn't improve. Yes, it got better. No, she just sat on her punches and fought faster. What the fuck? She just fought faster and sat on her punches. That's what she did. Her combinations didn't get better. If she did that the way she usually fights, Hill probably gets hit a couple times and then moves out the way. Anyways, whatever. That's just me nitpicking. She drops and outstrikes Hill, right? Had some ground and pound, a lot of ground and pound, but Hill got her a little bit. When they got to the ground, here's the big crux. Yes, she dropped her and whatever. There was a lot of waiting on the ground, and yes, she's searching for submissions and whatever. I don't think this round is a 10-8. There's enough in this round that Hill deters off to avoid a 10-8. But that's just my opinion. I might be in the minority, but there's enough that Hill does in this round to deter off. If you look at this round in conjunction to round 3 and round 5, this is nowhere near a 10-8. It's goofy business, but whatever. You go to the second round. Okay. Hill outstrikes Dern. Now at the start of this round, Dern is actually outstriking Hill. She does the same thing where her striking has turned into Rose Namajunas level striking. No, she just again sits on her punches, and Hill. Oh my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ! I don't even want to go on a Hill tangent right now. Hill decides to just decides, okay, fuck it, I suck on the feet all of a sudden. It's crazy. I'm not even going to go into that. Split decision fighter. Okay, that wants to complain about the judging being very split decision heavy on her when her style is very split decision-y. It's kind of like when Matt Brown was like, fuck the judges. Now, I'm cool that he said fuck the judges, because there's many times we all say fuck the judges. But you didn't win the Barberina fight. You can't get mad at the Barberina fight, buddy. You lost the Barberina fight. It's as simple as that, but whatever. That's a moot point. Back to the point. She decides, fuck it, Dern's better than me on the feet. Let's just do the Raquel Pennington, Holly Holm experiment, which is hold you against the cage and strike from there. And it works. And she outstrikes her pretty much all in the clinch, holds her there for a big chunk of the round, and wins the round that way. You go to the third round where Dern decides, okay, fuck the clinch thing. Now, they go back to the clinch occasionally, but it's not really consequential or important. Dern, again on the feet, outstrikes her, has a takedown with ground and pound for about 3 minutes. I mean, it's constant. I mean, she doesn't stop. She just keeps going and going and going to the point where it's like, okay, halfway through, you're like, this is a 10-8. This is going to be a 10-8, and that's what I gave, a 10-8. Real quick back to the second round. There was a part, I think if I remember, real quick back to the first round. If I remember, there's a part in the second round where McKenzie was flowing so well where she dropped, she outstruck her, she got on top of her. There's that scene at the end where it's not a submission attempt. Yeah, I don't count it as a submission attempt because it's not in, but where, and we'll get to this at the end, Hill is holding on for dear life. It's in this round. It's in the third. Hold on, which round is it? I believe it's in the third, and maybe there's another round where she's holding on for dear life. She's holding on for, at the end, she was holding on to her leg. She's holding on to her hand. She started holding on to her own glove. She was props to her. Props to her. There's a lot of talking MMA about, when we start talking about toughness or oh man, that person's tough or blah, blah, blah. That gets annoying after a while. This was a real display of like, okay, this girl has me beat pretty much everywhere, especially on the ground. And she decided, and her will to not get taken. Because yes, at the end of the day, sure, it's a technique to hold your fucking hand from getting armbarred. But if we're going to be real about it, it's not a conventional technique. That's more of a last-minute resort, desperation. If this weren't a fight and this is for my life situation, that's what that looks like. Props to her for not giving up in this fight, but I'll get to that in a second. Third round, I already said that. Fourth round, again, gets outstruck. Hill gets outstruck. Hill gets a takedown, like, towards the very end, and then Dern gets a reversal, but Dern had already outstruck her. It's in this round, or I believe the fifth round, where, and I think it's the fourth round, where Dern gets rocked, or Hill gets rocked badly, and then, which round was it? I don't remember which round it was. It's a round where she just gets rocked. She gets hit. She doesn't get dropped. She gets rocked, and then she goes into the ground. And it might be the fifth. It might be the fifth round, actually. It might be the fifth or the third. I'd have to rewatch it. But anyways, fifth and final round. Basically, at the start of the round, Mackenzie Dern is just like, let me get you down to the ground. Gets her down to the ground, gets a takedown, ground and pound consistently, 3+ minutes, searching for submissions. That's a 10-8. Boom. That's how you get the 49-44. You go to the judges' scorecards. Mike Bell, his scorecard reflects mine perfectly. Shout out Mike Bell. Boom. Doing the Michael Bisping. Shout out random X guy. Insufferable Mike Bell. Insufferable Michael Bisping. Saul D'Amato, 49-44 scorecard reflection. And then Ron McCarthy wants to be cute and give a 10-8 in the first round. I don't like it. But honorable mention there to Ron McCarthy. Yeah, so there are the scorecards. There it is. Final thing before I leave. They gave, real quick, Michael Bisping, I believe I want to say it's the fourth or the fifth round. I can't remember exactly. No, it has to be the fifth round. It's the fifth round where Michael Bisping is so biased. It's getting annoying. Granted, Dern is winning the fight, so no one's going to care too much. But there's a part where Dern is laying down the ground and pound, and he says, "Get it!" Now we know his connections to Perillo. We know he's cool with Mackenzie Dern. It's insane that he just openly on the commentary is just like rooting for somebody. Given that I don't know if Hill still works for the UFC from a broadcasting sense, but they're colleagues. They always try and cape for the fighters in the sense of, we don't want to hurt their feelings. We're not really trying to go. We're trying to just call the fight and give constructive criticism. This wasn't Hill needs to do something different. This was get it. He was just being like, "Yo, finish the fight." He was basically telling Mackenzie Dern to finish the fight. It's insane that each week after week we get nonsense like that, and then we get Paul Felder going, "Oh my God," after Jared Gordon gets headbutted. The theatrics over there is insane. And then probably the worst part, actually, is there's a part where him and Felder are just like, yo, if Angela Hill just turned over and just lost the fight, right, just gave in, just tapped or whatever, there'd be no shame. Okay, yeah, there would be no shame because we're MMA fans and whatever. It's not that. It's the fact that he even brought that up, because it's almost like he's not even thinking. Why is it in the 5th round? Listen, there's many outs for her in this fight. Round 1 is a perfect out. She got dropped. She's getting beat to smithereens. And then right at the end, it's a perfect armbar. I mean, if one knuckle isn't holding the other knuckle together, she's getting armbarred. And the fact that she held on for dear life shows she's not quitting. You're making me sound like the fluff machine for the UFC, but still, I'm just saying how it was. There's another section, I want to say probably 3rd round is another round where she easily could have been, she's getting murdered. She could have tapped. She could have gone out of there. 5th round is the one I'm talking about, but she could have gone out of there. It's nuts that Bisping just brought that up out of nowhere. And then last thing, fight of the night. This has been irking me since the dawn of time. The fight of the night should be, was this a competitive fight? Was this an entertaining, yes, but competitive fight? Right? The Landwehr Onama fight, while Onama lost that fight, and he was losing the majority of the fight, it's an entertaining fight. That deserves fight of the night. But for some reason, there's a trend, and I wish I had a list, there's a trend of just fight of the nights being, did you get your ass murdered? Did you get your ass killed? Here's $50K. Because that's what this is. Hill won one round, and that round was her hugging was her clinching. I think a couple weeks ago or last week, I can't remember, a couple weeks ago on the pay-per-view, Evloev versus Lopez, fight of the night. That's a one-sided fight. That's a one-sided fight, Evloev, 30-27, objectively speaking. And the only argument you can make is, oh, there are moments of like submission attempts and oh, he definitely shouldn't belong here. That's fine, but there's a lot of trends. There's a trend of just fight of the nights being, how bad did you get your ass beat? Here's $50K so you don't look bad at it. Look bad. It's getting out of hand. It's getting out of hand. And there's this weird narrative that just keeps bugging my head, because when I see shit like that, it just reminds me of how quick the narrative moves on everything. That when that Volkanovski versus, now I'm just going off. Now I'm bored at this point. When Volkanovski fought Ortega, the narrative of that fight is, how didn't he tap? How did he get out of that guillotine? That's not the fucking narrative of that fight. The narrative of that fight, and I've been thinking this for a long time, so this isn't some like I'm going back in time to fucking make myself look cool on Volkanovski. I thought this the day I watched that fight. I'm so mad about that fight because round 1 is Felder and DC going, oh yeah, great shot by Ortega, and I'm like, he's getting outstruck like 2-1, but okay, great shot by Ortega. And the narrative of that fight is, how did he not get out of that guillotine? Well, the narrative should be, he basically got 50-pieced. He lost every single round. Maybe won a round is what people want to really... it's insane. That's what people really want to talk about. The two things people want to talk about that fight, about that fucking fight, is, but he came back in the 5th round. Oh, the guillotine. I'm like, oh my, I'm having a whatever. That's it. That's all for tonight. We'll be back in 2 weeks for the next card. Thank you all for listening, and God bless.